Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for inviting me here today. In April 2014, Andrew Weisberg, J.M. Berger, and I noticed a petition on the whitehouse.gov website. Alaska Back to Russia appeared as a public campaign to give America's largest state back to the nation from which it was purchased. Satirical or nonsensical petitions appearing on the White House website are not out of the norm. But this petition was different, having gained more than 39,000 online signatures in a short period. Our examination of those signing and posting on this petition revealed an odd pattern. The accounts varied considerably from other petitions and appeared to be the work of bots. A closer look at those bots tied in closely with other social media campaigns we had observed pushing Russian propaganda months before. Hackers proliferated the networks and could be spotted amongst recent data breaches and website defacements. Closely circling those hackers were honeypot accounts, attractive-looking women, political partisans that were trying to social engineer other users. Above all, we observed hecklers, those synchronized trolling accounts you see on Twitter that would attack political targets using similar talking patterns and points. Those accounts, some of which overtly support the Kremlin, promoted Russian foreign policy positions targeting key English-speaking audiences throughout Europe and North America. Soviet active measures, strategy, and tactics have been reborn and updated for the modern Russian regime in the digital age. Today, Russia hopes to win the Second Cold War through the force of politics as opposed to the politics of force. While Russia certainly seeks to promote Western candidates sympathetic to their worldview and foreign policy objectives, winning a single election is not their end goal. Russian active measures hope to topple democracies through the pursuit of five complementary objectives. 1, undermine citizen confidence in democratic governance. 2, foment and exasperate divisive political fissures. 3, erode trust between citizens and elected officials and their institutions. 4, popularize Russian policy agendas within foreign populations. And 5, create general distrust or confusion over information sources by blurring the lines between fact and fiction, a very pertinent issue today in our country. From these objectives, the Kremlin can crumble democracies from the inside out, achieving 2 key milestones. 1, the dissolution of the European Union, and 2, the breakup of NATO. Achieving these 2 victories against the West will allow Russia to reassert its power globally and pursue its foreign policy objectives bilaterally through military, diplomatic, and economic aggression. In late 2014 and throughout 2015, we watched active measures on nearly any disaffected U.S. audience, whether it be claims of the U.S. military declaring martial law during the Jade Helm exercise, chaos amongst Black Lives Matter protests, or a standoff at the Bundy Ranch. Russia's state-sponsored outlets of RT and Sputnik News, characterized as white outlets, churned out manipulated truths, false news stories, and conspiracies. They generally lined up under 4 themes. 1, political messages designed to tarnish democratic leaders and institutions. 2, financial propaganda created to weaken confidence in financial markets and capitalist economies. 3, social unrest crafted to amplify divisions amongst democratic populaces. And 4, global calamity pushed to incite fear of global demise, such as nuclear war or catastrophic climate change. From these overt Russian propaganda outlets, a wide range of English-speaking conspiratorial websites, which we refer to as gray outlets, some of which mysteriously operate from Eastern Europe and are curiously led by pro-Russian editors of unknown financing, sensationalize these conspiracies and fake news published by white outlets. American-looking social media accounts, the hecklers, honeypots, and hackers I described earlier, working alongside automated bots, further amplify this Russian propaganda amongst unwitting Westerners. Through the end of 2015 and start of 2016, the Russian influence system began pushing themes and messages seeking to influence the outcome of the U.S. presidential election. Russia's overt media outlets and covert trolls sought to sideline opponents on both sides of the political spectrum with adversarial views towards the Kremlin. They were in full swing during both the Republican and Democratic primary season and may have helped sink the hopes of candidates more hostile to Russian interests long before the field narrowed. Senator Rubio, in my opinion, you anecdotally suffered from these efforts. The final piece of Russia's modern active measures surfaced in the summer of 2016 as hacked materials were strategically leaked. The disclosures of WikiLeaks, Guccifer 2.0, and DC Leaks demonstrated how hacks would power the influence system Russia had built so successfully in the previous 2 years. As an example, on the evening of 30 July 2016, my colleagues and I watched as RT and Sputnik News simultaneously launched false stories of the U.S. airbase in Incirlik, Turkey being overrun by terrorists. Within minutes, pro-Russian social media aggregators and automated bots amplified this false news story. More than 4,000 tweets in the first 78 minutes after launching this false story, linked back to the active measures accounts we'd tracked in the previous 2 years. These previously identified accounts, almost simultaneously appearing from different geographic locations and communities, amplified the fake news story in unison. The hashtags pushed by these accounts were nuclear, media, Trump, Benghazi. The most common words found in English-speaking Twitter user profiles were God, military, Trump, family, country, conservative, Christian, America, and Constitution. These accounts and their messages clearly sought to convince Americans a U.S. military base was being overrun and a terrorist attack. In reality, a small protest gathered outside the gate, and the increased security at the air base sought to secure the arrival of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Many of the accounts we watch push the false Incirlik story today focus on the elections in Europe, promoting fears of immigration or false claims of refugee criminality. They've not forgotten about the U.S. either. This past week, we observed social media accounts discrediting Speaker of the House Paul Ryan, hoping to further foment unrest inside U.S. democratic institutions. The implications of Russia's new active measures model will be twofold. The first is what the world is witnessing today, a Russian challenge to democracies throughout the West. But more importantly, over the horizon, Russia has provided any authoritarian dictator or predatory elite equipped with hackers and disrespectful of civil liberties a playbook to dismantle their enemies through information warfare. The U.S., in failing to respond to active measures, will surrender its position in as the world's leader, forego its role as chief promoter and defender of democracy, and give up on over 70 years of collective action to preserve freedom and civil liberties around the world. Russia's strategic motto for America and the West is divided they stand and divided they will fall. It's time the United States reminds the world that despite our day-to-day policy debates and political squabbles, we stand united alongside our allies in defending our democratic system of government from the meddling of power-hungry tyrants and repressive authoritarians that prey on their people and suppress humanity. I'll close here with my opening remarks, but I have many recommendations which are in my written testimony. Mr. Chairman, I ask that my full written statement, which includes these recommendations, be submitted to the record, and I hope that during the question and answer session, we can further discuss how we might counter these active measures. Thank you for inviting me.
Mr. Watts, thank you for your testimony, and all written testimony will be included as part of the record. The chair and the vice chairman are going to exit and vote. I'm going to recognize Senator Risch for his questions, and in our absence, he'll lob back and forth based upon seniority. Senator Risch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, it always impresses me the fact that when we hear people talking about Russian policy and what they want, first of all, how uniform it is. Everybody seems to agree on where they're going, what they do, and what they're doing to get there. But after processing that over a long period of time, one's got to come to the thought process of what happens in a post-Putin Russia, because everyone's got a shelf life, and his has been extended. It looks to me well beyond what normally would happen under these circumstances. So, give me your thoughts briefly, each of you, if you would, as to what happens. Do they stay on the same track they're on, or do they come to the realization that there's bigger and better things in life to pursue than what they're doing right now? Mr. Godson?
Well, thank you for the question. There's a lot, as you know, a lot of variables here at work. One would be how we respond to Putin and the behavior of the apparatus that they have. Do we let them continue to do this, or do we start to develop some sort of a strategic response to them? That would be one of the variables. Do they find that they can get away with, use active measures as they have in the past? And if so, then the elite that has taken power in Russia would be inclined to continue. They found that even when they sometimes have not been as effective as they expected, that active measure still is a capability that enables them to use the example of being able to fight above their economic and political capabilities. So unless there was a dramatic change in the regime, there's little reason to believe that they would cease the active measures policy and strategy they have, barring that we don't actually cauterize it and limit its effectiveness. If we don't, then they'll have an incentive to continue.
Dr. Hoover.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Putin, I believe, is 62, a man in his prime. He's positioned to run in 2018 again for another 6-year term. So I think what we see today is going to be with us for a long time. By the looks of it, for the next 2 presidential terms in this country. And so we should base our policy accordingly. I think it would be incorrect and counterproductive to tar all Russians with the same brush. But there's something there in Russian traditional security perceptions that transcend party lines, that transcend regimes, and Russian perceptions of security don't really change all that much over time. So I think we should be thinking about the drivers of Russian foreign and security policy in terms of continuity rather than radical change. After all, we already saw radical change in 1991, and things in the end didn't really change that much. As long as Russian elites will see themselves, as long as they see themselves as being inferior and struggling against a more advanced and a more powerful Western alliance, they will be relying on all tools in their toolkit, and information warfare will be disinformation will be part of it. We may hope that if someday someone like the corruption fighter Alexei Navalny gets elected, rises to the leadership of the country, having been a victim of such disinformation, he may be more restrained in it. But I would say that the basic parameters of Russian policy are generally set in place.
Thank you, Doctor. I've only got a short time left. I want to hear from Mr. Watts.
Yes. Regarding Mr. Putin, I would look to these 2 gentlemen primarily, but my thoughts are, 1, he's not going away anytime soon. 2, he will definitely shape some sort of a successor in his place to continue on with what he's doing right now. I think the third big thing that we can't discount is the connection with criminality. There is, between these elites and their sort of predatory capitalist practices, what we see in cyberspace with cybercrime and how they've used hackers very, very well as part of their active measures, we can't discount that we'll see a predatory elite emerge that will be something we have to deal with. And I think the fourth thing, which goes to the first point, is I'm not sure what our policy or stance is with regards to Russia at this point in the United States. And I think that's the number one thing we have to figure out, because that will shape how they interface with us. Having watched the end of the Soviet Union as a cadet at West Point and then fast forwarding to today, I'm a little bit lost as to what our U.S. interests are or how they're coalescing. I know what I would recommend, but I think that will have a major impact on how we will be able to interface, and maybe I see opportunity in Putin's departure.